All right, so getting to the main event of the show for today, I thought that we would talk about the movie Nightcrawler. I don't know if most of y'all have seen the film. It's a 2014 thriller film starring Jake Gyllenhaal, Riz Ahmed, Rene Russo, and the late, great, and beloved Bill Paxton. Rest in peace. We miss you. So Gyllenhaal portrays Lewis, a man who seems to possess little to no morals. He takes what he wants when he wants. The beginning of the film shows Lewis clipping a chain link fence with cutters. He gets caught by the security guard, and during a conversation with the security guard, he notices a very nice watch on the man's wrist. So Lewis surprises the guard by clobbering him to the ground. The next scene shows the watch on Lewis's wrist. Lewis stumbles into the world of paparazzi journalism. Coming upon a graphic accident on a Los Angeles freeway, he meets Bill Paxton's character getting footage for local news channels. Lewis is fascinated with the concept of becoming one of these people. Now, just a quick quote from the character, Lewis. He says, "Fear stands for false evidence appearing real." Now, this is something that he says to motivate his one employee. Now, after getting a camcorder and a police scanner and a navigator that's played by Riz Ahmed, and his character's name is Rick, they end up getting to work. The job is awful and dangerous. Speeding across Los Angeles to cover a horrific car crash, this is kind of a nightly routine for the men. Now, Paxton's character, who also does this type of work, inspires Lewis, and when they first meet, he is getting footage of a horrific accident, and he says, "If it bleeds, it leads." Now, this is the film's overall expression. So the more gore, the more chance it will be to get news and be a leading story. So, though Lewis is inspired by Paxton's character, it's really Rene Russo as the station leader, Nina, who mentors Lewis to get the best footage possible. She tells him to go to affluent areas and get crimes happening to, I guess, wealthy or richer people. And she says that that's the kind of stuff that really makes the news in the movie. Now, I will mention that the relationship between Russo's Nina and Gyllenhaal's Lewis in the film becomes downright inappropriate, and the Russo character arc with Nina is pretty strange. It shows where her character goes throughout the film, and by the end of the film, you realize Nina may be just as deranged as Lewis. Maybe more. Lewis is shown to be memorizing police call signs so he can better understand the chatter on his scanner. Multiple times, Lewis is shown putting his hair in a small little man bun, and he does this during specific scenes, like when he steals an expensive bicycle or he's chasing a particularly gruesome story. There is a poignant scene in which his assistant accidentally spills gasoline on his muscle car's exterior paint. He kind of gets into it with his assistant there, saying that the gasoline will eat the paint and that he needs to be more mindful of things like that. So now I guess I'm cursed with any time I'm gassing up my car, I always think about that scene in the film. And I'm sure if you actually watch the movie too, Nightcrawler, if you watch it, you'll probably experience the same kind of weird deja vu, and you'll be trying to wipe the gas off your car, concerned about the paint. Something I was never really worried about before until this film. Thanks, Gyllenhaal. Lewis gets so intense with his chases that he moves a car wreck victim to be in better light, pulling him along the pavement by his ankles, definitely risking further injury to the person. Lewis actually still has the person's blood on his clothing when he goes to sell the video to Nina. Okay, so that's the plot of this film, and for years I just didn't see the film. I didn't quite understand what it was about. But maybe 3 or 4 years ago, I saw the movie for the first time, and I have to mention, this is my favorite Jake Gyllenhaal film, as well as my favorite Jake Gyllenhaal character in Lewis. This is also an exciting movie, a thriller that actually thrills, and I would recommend the film to everyone. Dan Gilroy, in his directorial debut, is the writer and director, and his other films, including writing 1994's Chasers and Two for the Money in 2005. So Dan Gilroy, this was his directorial debut, but he was also the writer, and he actually ended up getting a nomination for Best Original Screenplay at the 2014 Academy Awards. I was reading something kind of interesting about him, and it was saying that he actually wanted his wife, Renee Russo, that's who his wife is, to play the character of Nina, which I think is pretty interesting. Now, he also wrote Kong Skull Island, which is a very good film, and I would also recommend that one. But getting back to Nightcrawler, one of my questions about this film is how Lewis became such a wonderful driver. In the film, especially in the climactic scene, he looks like he's straight out of the Fast and the Furious movies. He's drifting around corners and doing all sorts of crazy stuff in his car. It's a lot of fun to watch, but it is a little distracting considering how did the man become a stunt driver? So Gyllenhaal mentions that when he was in the making of on the DVD, Jake Gyllenhaal mentions that Lou is a product of his generation and that he was raised on the internet. So he's not really a people person. He's kind of more of an introvert. He lives in a culture that ultimately is capitalism or success at any cost, and that's how Lewis sees himself. Now, for the film, they brought in two experts, or stringers as they're called. The experts' names were Austin and Howard Raichbrook, and they were consultants to the film, bringing along their own expertise. They spent a couple of nights with the brothers chasing accidents, and the inspiration for the film overall was a crime photographer from the 1930s in New York City. He was the original person with a police scanner in his car visiting crime scenes. Nightcrawler is actually another name for the term stringer, who is a person who visits accident sites with a camera for money. The director mentions that he wrote the character for people around that time, 2014, people under 30 who had trouble finding gainful employment. And as I was watching the movie, every time I see the movie, but now I know for a fact he did, I had wondered if Gyllenhaal lost weight for the role, and it turns out it's true. Renee Russo, a fellow cast member in the movie, mentioned he was starving to death. He wasn't eating. Gyllenhaal actually compared his character of Lewis to a coyote, a desperate, hungry, primal type of character who's prepared to do whatever it takes. An ABC News interview with Gyllenhaal has Gyllenhaal mentioning, "There's a special type of personality that can do this job. You have to love the night. I actually found myself disappointed when the sun would come up." Creepy. So Gyllenhaal said he lost weight to look like a coyote, and that he wanted to look hungry and feel hungry to achieve this. He ended up losing 30 pounds eating kale salads and running a 10-mile loop over and over. Sounds awful. All right, so Gilroy also directed Roman J. Israel and the film Velvet Buzzsaw. And there was some interesting YouTube information about the movie. A GQ breaking down iconic characters had some extra info. Gyllenhaal called Nightcrawler the best screenplay that he has ever read. He had a vision in his head of Lewis saying that Lewis was not going to be physically imposing, but all mind, all brains. He saw Lewis as an artist with his camera and his subjects. Because they spent 20 days shooting, Gyllenhaal said that he wanted Lewis to talk really fast in order to make sure that he got all of the dialogue in the film because of the short shooting time. And that's definitely true. As you're watching the movie, Gyllenhaal is speaking more than a mile a minute. It's pretty cool. So, that's all I really have about Nightcrawler for the moment, although most recently